All right, and welcome everyone to today's virtual workshop series. In just a few moments, you're going to be hearing from our Chief Revolution Officer at the DiJulius Group, John DiJulius, and our Vice President of Consulting, Dave Murray, both best-selling authors, most recently for the Employee Experience Revolution. Today is our final workshop series in regards to the book, The Employee Experience Revolution, and they are going to be speaking to you on how to leave a leadership legacy. So before we get started, just a few things. I will be monitoring chat. It is turned on. It is ready to go. So if you have any ahas, things that you want to share, best practices, please go ahead and put that in chat. We want you to be as interactive with each other as possible. And then we do have both John and Dave live with us today, and they will be taking questions at the end of their presentation. So anything that you would like them to go into further, questions that you'd like to, you will be receiving a follow-up email from me. It'll include not only the copy of the recording for today's presentation, but also a PDF slide deck of all of their slides. So you will have copies of all of that. And I always include additional resources from the DiJulius Group and ways that you can get in touch with us for more information. And now I am going to turn it over to both John and Dave.
Thank you, Lindsay. Welcome, revolutionaries. And the employee experience revolution, how we define that is great companies help people live extraordinary lives. Their leaders inspire employees to build lives of meaning and purpose. And as Lindsay said, we are on the last chapter, leaving a leadership legacy. One of the things that my personal mission is to live an extraordinary life so countless others do. And I just feel like it's an obligation that we need to do this personally and professionally. So welcome, Dave Murray.
Thank you, John. It's great to see you today. I can't believe that we're already on chapter 9. It flew by, but it kind of makes sense because I don't know if you're getting this feedback. We haven't talked about it yet, John, but a lot of the feedback that I'm getting on the book from people that have at least started it, if not finished it already, is that, there's so many great points in there, which we knew when we were putting it together, but also that it's an easy read, which I find as a compliment because sometimes I feel like I'm a little clunky when I'm writing. So I'm glad to hear that. But I feel like this 9 sessions of webinar has just been kind of like easy conversations, and I feel like that's what the book is too.
Yeah. And I know I've been guilty in the past of geeking out when I'm writing and stuff that, a nerd, a CX nerd or an EX nerd would enjoy, but maybe not the general public. So I think we did a much better job. All right. Oh, I took your slides. I'm so sorry, Dave. I'm looking at the past webinar where the slides. So I'm sorry.
That was a great webinar.
I'll try to be more considerate and not take your slides. All right. Who are you not to be great? Who are you to be ordinary? Who are you to deny greatness? If you would deny it to yourself, you would deny it to the entire world. How dare are you to be ordinary? I love this quote too. Undeveloped potential cheats those around us, those we touch, influence, and impact, as well as deprive ourselves of joy, satisfaction, and opportunities. Living our life to its fullest potential is not an opportunity. It's our responsibility. It's an obligation to be the best version of ourselves we possibly can be every day, not just for us and how our life will benefit, but also for the people depending on us, our spouse, our children, friends, employees, coworkers, customers, and our community. I love that. That's what, keeps me trying to be the best version of myself is that guilt of the domino effect. And those who've done it before us that had the great people in our families, businesses, relationships that have had such a positive influence on us, and we probably wouldn't be where we are today. So,
and John, if I could just add before you transition to the next slide, this when we do this in a workshop fashion. So, for example, at our Customer Experience Executive Academy, we cover some of these exercises and topics of leaving that leadership legacy. It's really powerful. And it's one of the most powerful and probably transformative days that we go through with that group when they come in to go through all those classes, those 12 days of classwork. And I think one of the things that makes it so powerful is captured in this quote, that this isn't just work, right? It's also your family life. And that will be a theme of what we talk about today.
Yeah.
It will come up a few times, but it's really your whole self. It's not just your work self. It's putting your whole self into everything you do. So it's really, really powerful.
Yeah, you're right, Dave. I've always was worried that this when we do this as a workshop with a client or in our academies, this may be too foo-foo for people, but it's really probably the highest rated, most praised of all the sessions we do. So let's get into it. I love this term, Ubuntu. And you'll hear about it from this TED Talk speaker.
Ubuntu is an African word that means I am because we are. And it refers to the power of our shared humanity, rooted in kindness, compassion, and interconnectedness. Can you imagine if our global philosophy followed this? If there's literally no place where I end and you begin, how would that change how you show up to work? How you treat your neighbors, how you led others? I honestly believe this word has the power to change the world.
Yeah, I love that. I am because we are. And I think the greatest leaders of all time, whatever you want to classify them, created a sense of community that gets people to rally around it. So.
And here's something that great leaders do as well, is they're a contrarian. And here's what happens in so many organizations, and we hear this all the time in our consulting, that what happens is great initiatives, great ideas fall victim to the old school thinking of we've always done it this way, right? And so what this contrarian thought process is that you're not necessarily just following popular opinion or groupthink, especially a position against the majority, but that's what leaders need to do to really be successful. What is going to move us forward? What is best for us as an organization? Not what's most convenient, or not what's going to get us to weather this storm. What's going to help us really in the long run? So great leaders really are contrarians by nature. They question everything. They don't just fall into that groupthink or consensus way of thinking. And they're willing to push back and reimagine what's the best way to do things. And so if you think about your leadership style and your leadership opportunities, are you pushing back? Are you looking for what's best for either your department or the organization as a whole, and not just solving that one problem, or not just going along with something that we've always done that way? So it's really something to think about from a leadership standpoint.
You know, something that you made me think of here, Dave, is it's not just the leader that needs to be a contrarian, but something I've struggled with is you want contrarians on your team. But the first instinct is when if you're in a meeting and you're an employee and you're or a leader and you're challenging, my first knee-jerk reaction is, Dave, just go with it. Like, why are you trying to throw a wrench into things? And that's, really dangerous. We need contrarians on our team. We need people pushing back and playing devil's advocate. One of the scariest things is if I come up with an idea and the whole room agrees with me. That is almost a sign that there's something wrong with that.
But you bring up a great point, because that also falls back on leadership, because leaders need to create that confidence and that level of comfort that people can share their views and not feel as though they're going to be singled out, called out, whatever that may be.
100%.
Here's a great quote from Stan Slapp. Stan spoke at our conference a few years ago and was just amazing. Your leadership's emotional commitment is what solves problems that are unsolvable, creates energy when all of the energy has been expanded, and ignites emotional commitment in others, including your employee culture. And so at the end of the day, what this is really saying is, if your leadership team is all in, if they're emotionally connected with the team, with the organization, then they are going to have that energy. They are going to be able to focus on and solve those problems that seem unsolvable. They are going to have that extra energy when everything's been expended. And so that emotional connection, that emotional commitment from your leadership team, or from you as a leader to the team that follows you, whoever that may be, is so important and very often overlooked.
Yeah, and this reminds me, I don't know if it was last webinar or which webinar it was, but this all comes full circle. You can't get that emotional commitment from leaders if they're accidental managers, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's so important. The reality distortion field, back when Apple was just a startup, one of the first things new employees were taught, sometimes a hard way, was that their leader, Steve Jobs, had a reality distortion field. The reality distortion field enabled Jobs and Apple to inspire his team to change the course of computing history with a fraction of the resources of Xerox and IBM. They did the impossible because they didn't realize it was impossible. The reality distortion field was a combination of Jobs' charismatic style, Riz, an indomitable will, and an eagerness to bend any fact to fit the purpose at hand. Even though Apple employees were aware of what Jobs was doing, they would eventually give up and go with it and end up doing the impossible. How can you create your own reality distortion field? Steve Jobs' reality distortion field was a personal refusal to accept limitations that stood in the way of ideas, to convince himself and anyone on his team that anything was in fact possible. Each of us have the opportunity to create such a field. What we consider possible and impossible are merely the way we are pre-programmed in consensus thinking about artificial boundaries. What ideas and thoughts do you need to become unrealistic about? Which is a great lead in to your story here, Dave.
Yeah, let's talk about Roger Bannister and belief systems, because what John just talked about with that reality distortion has a lot to do with what you believe, what your teams believe, and how beliefs can really limit us. Kind of going back to that idea of we've always done it this way, and how can we ever do something differently? So here's the story of the 4-minute mile, just to refresh your memories, because I'm sure a lot of you remember hearing this back in grade school. But for centuries and centuries, man tried to find a way to break the 4-minute mile. And legend has it that even at one point, the Romans or whomever had lions chase men to try and get them to run faster and try and break that 4-minute mark. And it just wasn't happening. And
how did that work out?
Yeah, for the runners, usually not very well. The lions were a little faster.
Yeah.
But in the early 50s, there were actually some medical experts that had been studying this, and they determined that the human body just wasn't capable of eclipsing that 4-minute mile pace. That was a barrier that couldn't be passed, and it just kind of was what it was. As a matter of fact, they also said that it was dangerous to push the human body to that limit. So that was in the 1950s. Very soon after that, actually May 6th of 1954, Roger Bannister made history and really shocked the world, and especially the medical community, when he broke the 4-minute mile barrier. He basically made the impossible possible. And everyone was like, could this ever happen again? Is he just some sort of extreme human that can do this? But what happened next was so amazing. Within the next 12 months, so within that calendar year from when Roger Bannister broke the record on May 6th, that following 12 months, 24 more runners broke the 4-minute mark. So here we go, all throughout history of no one being able to touch that mark. One person beats it, and all of a sudden 12 people follow within that same calendar year. So did the human anatomy change? Did people become stronger? Well, what really changed at the end of the day was the belief system, right? What people were always told couldn't happen, someone proved that wrong and they achieved it. So then other people knew that they were able to make that change as well, to hit that goal. And this belief system applies to all of us in every aspect of our lives. At the end of the day, we can be either very limited by beliefs, or we can be encouraged and pushed forward by our beliefs. It's really dependent on what our beliefs are. So as leaders, we need to be thinking about what are the beliefs of our team? What are the beliefs of our department or of our organization? Do we have limitations? And if we do, are they holding us back? Because most likely they probably are. And so how can we shift the mindset on some of those beliefs that currently exist within the organization?
Love that story, Dave. And you're an avid runner. You've run marathons and half. Did you ever break the 4-minute mile, Dave?
Never in my life. I broke 7. That was my big
Wow,
accomplishment. I've
that
done a
is a big accomplishment.
6:58.
Wow, nice.
I'll
All
take that.
right. Leading in a crisis. Now, I thought this was really important because, it's kind of bookmark this for, you as a leader to go back and sometimes it's not applicable. Today everything might be going pretty well. You kind of think of, in my career, leading in a crisis, you got 9/11, right? Which, shocked the world. Then you had the um, uh, um, 2008 Great Depression, was it called? I think, yeah. And then, you had the pandemic, and all that goes with it. But besides the world, things that dictate the economy, maybe, a presidential year, all those things. The other thing is we have our personal crises, and personal could be in our company. It could be change. It could be, something happening in our industry, and it could also be personal. So, there's no telling when you're going to go through your crisis. So this is really important for me to go back and some rules. You got to communicate with your team. If it's a company-wide crisis, you got to communicate like never before. Communication is the key. Just constantly communicating. Refer to your mission, purpose, core values, and customer experience action statement as the foundation of why we're around and measuring everything. Love this quote. This isn't happening to us, it's happening for us. So we got to weaponize adversity. A crisis is a horrible thing to waste. It's an opportunity to reinvent yourself. And then the final thing that I'll go into a little deeper is be in the certainty business. But before I go into that, I see so many times that leaders or just people in general, again, this could be a personal crisis, ball up and, in the fetal position. And, listen, if you're not an accidental manager, if you chose to go into leadership, if you chose to be an entrepreneur, I think if you chose to be a parent, you didn't do it because you always thought it was going to be great times. You wanted to be that person, that leader, that whoever, that when shit hits the fan, you're the one that is the calm, voice that steers, that your community out of those troubled waters. Number one cause of anxiety is uncertainty. Today it's all about uncertainty, a world racked by, economic instability, political divide, racial unrest. Uncertainty causes anxiety. People would rather know bad news than worry about what could happen. In fact, a study conducted that showed people preferred the option of getting an electric shock now than the possibility of happening it later. So that's crazy. Uncertainty causes paralysis. Uncertainty causes people to be on edge, react irrationally, and struggle emotionally. Those people are employees, customers, family, and even ourselves. So be in the certainty business. Over communicate with your team, with your family during times of uncertainty.
So I love this quote, and we have to remember this as leaders. Leadership is easy when the wind is at our back, but much harder when we are facing into the headwinds, right? So talking about what you're just talking about, John, leading during a crisis, dealing with maybe a global crisis like the pandemic, or maybe it's an individual organization's crisis, financial difficulty, maybe loss of a huge longtime client, whatever that may look like. but that's when leadership really has to kick in. And that's when it's difficult, right? It's easier to be a leader when times are great and sales are up and everyone's happy, everyone's thriving. But what does it look like when you're really starting to face some adversity? And on this next slide, it's such a great reminder that tough times don't build character, they reveal it. So your character is already there, but going through that adversity, going through that tough times is really going to reveal what type of person you are, what type of leader you are, whether it's you as a leader or maybe someone on your team. And this quote reminds me, John, a lot of the interview practice of Walt Bettinger from Charles Schwab when he's interviewing a high-level executive to potentially join their team. And we talked about this in a previous session. He likes to take him out to a breakfast, and he purposely gets there early. He goes to the same restaurant every time, and he's in cahoots with the server, and he makes sure the server knows to screw up whatever that order is. So whatever the person orders, come out with something completely different, because he wants to gauge their reaction. If they're going to be a potential senior leader in the organization, he wants to see how they handle that adversity, what comes out in their character. Do they disparage the server? Do they apologize? Do they ask for the right order? Whatever that is, he's looking to see how they react. And reacting as leaders sometimes is so important and something that often gets overlooked. And this quote from Billie Jean King on leadership, I love: pressure is a privilege, and it only comes to those who earn it. Right? When you're a leader, that pressure does fall on you. You have to own it, whether it's your team's success, team's failure, whatever that is across your department or across your organization. But as you go up the leadership ranks, you are accepting that privilege of pressure. And are all our leaders aware of that? I think very often they're not, going back to the point that John brought up earlier, that 80% of leaders out there or managers are considered accidental managers, meaning they have the job knowledge and the job skill, but they don't necessarily have the leadership knowledge or skill. And accepting that pressure and handling that pressure is a big piece of that.
You know, Dave, I talk about I have a word of the year every year. It's really important to me. And one of my favorite words of the year was this was probably around maybe 2019, was my word encourage. And I stumbled on it when I was writing the book, The Relationship Economy, and it said the Greek translation for encourage is to make strong, others strong. And I don't know why. Then I started looking at encourage, and I kind of split up the words in courage, in courage, and then flip flop them. Courage in. And that's what encourage, as leaders, as human beings, as parents, as friends, I believe that's our job, is to put so much courage in other people. Whether it's your kids, it's new employees, it's your leadership team, it's your clients, is that they have almost an unrealistic expectations that they could do anything. And so that's why I love this next quote that goes with it, is what a great honor and responsibility to be a fundamental reason why people accomplish more, enjoy more, and are more fulfilled in the one life that they have to live. So, how much are you encouraging? And so you also, I watch a lot of videos and on YouTube and TikTok, and some people I look up to, I see what they blame their success on. And so I'm going to show two quick videos. One of Gary Vaynerchuk, which if you don't know, you should be following him. Super successful in so many aspects. And then one of Adam Sandler, and both they kind of give credit to the people that encouraged them and where they got to where they are.
Some of us in this room are extremely lucky to be the byproduct of an incredible mother. And when you are the byproduct of an incredible mother, you are really unstoppable. And so nothing scares me. I think I can do everything. And she's, the beacon and seed of everything that has worked for me in my life. And so the reason, if some of you have seen my social media, the reason I put up the number 5 is that's a little bit of a head nod to the person that crafted me. And that's my mom. My mom built huge self-esteem in me. And I feel like the biggest reason I am who I am today to everybody is because I feel so guilty and so grateful for what she did for me that I want to do it for everybody else, which is, guess what? You suck at a ton of shit. Good. So does everybody else. You're also probably pretty rad at something. Try as many things as possible until you figure out what you're rad at and you like, and go do that for the rest of your life and stop giving about everybody else.
All right, let's watch Adam Sandler's quick one.
Growing up, my parents literally did everything they could to give me crazy confidence at literally everything I did. School, sports, singing, joking, they acted like I was the best at all those things, even though other kids were way better than me. They just always made me feel like I was the star of the family.
Love that. I love that. Just, it makes me want to, call my kids, text my kids, call my staff, and just make people feel that they can do anything. Thoughts on any of that, Dave?
Yeah, going back to, we talked about a little bit earlier when we do this in workshop form, whether with a client or at one of our academies, to me, one of the most powerful pieces is, did I do enough today for all those people that are so important to me? Did I achieve everything I could? And again, not just your teams if you're a leader, but also those that are that rely on you at home, kids, spouse, etc. And so I think that's a really powerful mindset to keep in mind.
All right.
So every time we meet, John welcomes the revolutionaries. That's all of you are revolutionaries. But we want to remind you, especially as a leader, you are a revolutionary if and only if you are fascinated with the future, restless for change, impatient for progress, and deeply dissatisfied with the status quo. Talks a lot about the contrarian that we talked about earlier, and moving away from the we've always done it this way. So a leader really needs to challenge the organization, challenge their teams to be thinking differently. As a revolutionary, you are never satisfied with the present because in your head, you can see a better future, and the friction between what is and what could be burns you, stirs you, and propels you forward. I know that describes a lot of people that are listening to us right now.
It describes you, Dave. All right, I want to end this, and we'll take questions and have conversations with this. Who wants to be a billionaire, right? I mean, I think, a lot of us do. Well, there's a new definition by Pete Dal Camara, and it goes, someone who positively affects the lives of 1 billion people. I love that. Each of us absolutely have the ability to be a billionaire. Most of us probably don't come in contact with 1 billion people in our lifetime directly. However, through the hundreds of thousands of people we do encounter, family, friends, employees, coworkers, clients, and even strangers, we can practice being kind, genuine, and present. Encourage, to put courage in, to make others strong. The ripple effect from those positive interactions can positively impact 1 billion people. Pete Del Camara says, it's in times we create businesses with purpose, businesses that drive humanity-centric innovations. It's time that we stop working for businesses and businesses start working for us. So wrap up the book, The Employee Experience Revolution. Creating companies to help people live extraordinary lives. Their leaders inspire employees to build lives of meaning and purpose. And not only their leaders inspire employees, they inspire themselves. That's really important. So that wraps us up. I'm going to bring Lindsay back to take questions and facilitate. Let's talk about anything. We could talk about life balance, whatever, and want to mention here that if you want to get your book, this book for your leaders, we are offering 50% off a case of books. And coming up this fall is the new employee experience academy. It's a great leadership academy, similar to our customer experience academy, that will go through each one of these chapters for a year long, coming to beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, for 3 days every quarter. And we still have our webinar series, which is taking August off, because there's so many vacations and people getting kids back to school. But we will be back on September 12th, and it will continue all the way through to the holidays. So I'm going to throw it back to Lindsay.
All right. Hopefully we have some questions coming in. So I just wanted to share, hopefully we have some people typing in questions for you guys. Some of the stuff from chat. So Victor said, today we are making time for greatness, investing and learning in our growth, and thanked both of you for presenting. And then Kevin gave us a good recommendation. So he said, Upheaval, How Nations Cope with Crisis and Change by Jared Diamond is a great read. He said it goes over 10 steps to both national and personal crises.
Oh, I love that.
Crises. Yeah, these steps are outstanding for any form of crisis, national, personal, business, and he encouraged everyone to read it. So thank you again, Kevin, for that great
Love that,
recommendation.
Kevin. And just something to go along with that. My word of 2024 is opportunity, and it's not necessarily the way you may think of, oh, where's more opportunity for money and revenue stream and whatever. It's opportunity of seeing the opportunity in a crisis, right? And finding the opportunity. And it could go anyway. It could be, that my kids are having a meltdown, or, all right, what's the opportunity there? What's the lesson that could be learned to reduce this from happening again?
All right. So first question. Victor wants to know, what was your biggest surprise finding during your research for the book?
Dave.
So I would have to say, and we actually touched on it a couple of times in today's webinar, I would have to say the biggest surprise to me was that statistic on accidental managers. I knew accidental managers was a thing, and I knew it was out there, but the fact that it's over 80% now, and just something to share in case if you weren't on one of our previous webinars when we talked about this, before COVID, the accidental manager percentage was about 63%. So it grew from 63% to 80%, really from that small stretch of 2020, 2021, where organizations were, throwing promotions at people, just trying to keep people when staffing was an issue, et cetera. So it's always been a problem. I didn't realize it had become such a large problem in corporations today.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Dave. That was where I was going to go. That was my probably number one surprise, but just there's a lot of surprises. And it may stem from accidental managers. I think it also stems from greed, just the disparity between and this is probably more in the top 500, 100 companies, but we just got to be careful of the separation between the executive team, their growth and income over the past 35 years, 40, even 50 years since the 70s. I think Jack Welch's, who is the god in the 80s and 90s, the CEO of GE, was just all about, bottom line profit, raising, the stock price. Milton Friedman said, the stockholder theory is, is the number one priority of a company is to increase the value of the stockholders. And I think that got real, I think it should be replaced with shareholder, which is all the people, all the stakeholders, not shareholders, stakeholders, which is our employees, our community, our clients, our team members, each other. And so I just think it's really gotten out of whack. And, God bless the younger generation. As much as we want to grit our teeth, they're kind of giving us a wake-up call to all of that.
All right, here's a good question. It made me think of your Johnny National story, John. So let me know if it if you get
Yeah.
the same vibe. But Katie asked or mentioned, I love the idea of instilling confidence in our kids and employees like Adam Sandler, but can you do that too much? Won't people be disappointed when they can't do everything or have a distorted view of reality?
Yeah, that's a tough question. And I know we're coming off and it's what gets blamed on the younger generation that they grew up in right the area of the everyone got a participation trophy.
Right.
But I do believe that we gotta, really fuel ourselves, everyone in our world with that they can do everything. It doesn't mean we don't have honest, conversation. We don't say, hey, Johnny or Dave or Lindsay or whoever, that I know your goal is to be here before anyone else has ever been there or whatever it is. But you can't complain about the results you didn't get for the work you didn't do, right?
Mhm.
So as long as they're realistic and whether it's professional on your team or at home, what's your goal? Great. Do you understand what it's going to take to get there? You're going to have to out hustle, which is, that word has been canceled today. I still love it. And it will give you all the resources in the world to get there. Just, you got to be realistic about it. It's going to be a lot more work than you ever thought. Something I always go back to is everything I've ever gotten myself involved in. I don't know if anyone else can attest to this. From opening a business, right? Obviously, when you open a business, people say, "Oh my God, 4 out of 5 fail," and how hard it. And employees, oh my God, you don't want them. And yeah, whatever. And then when I got into it, it was so much harder than they even told me, right? From, writing my first book, from being married to being a parent. I mean, the list is endless of everything I've ever gotten myself into. I found myself in over my head, way harder than everyone warned me, and all I got was warnings. But I also, in every occasion, rose to the occasion. I just have that confidence. So that I think that's really important, is that, we have to know that, yeah, well, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I'm going to do what I have to, overcome it. And that, is consuming and becoming the smartest person and finding the opportunity in those losses.
Okay, so next question's from Gina, who also mentioned in chat that her entire leadership team is going to be doing a book club with your book in September. That's fantastic, Gina. Yeah, that's awesome. So here's her question. Yeah, what tips can you suggest for a smooth transition of a new leader coming into your organization and taking over staff?
Yeah, that is definitely a tough one. Dave, you want to take a swing at it? I'm going to
Sure.
give you the tough questions, Dave. I'm going with the easy, the layups.
Thank you, John. I appreciate
You can do it, Dave. I believe in you.
Oh, the encouragement is amazing. So I think the first thing that you have to do is make sure that you're not hiring an accidental manager from somewhere else, right? Just because they have that title of VP or director or whatever it is that you're bringing them in as, doesn't mean that they're necessarily a good leader of people. Just because maybe their team had some results, positive results at their last place of work, also doesn't mean they're a good leader of others. And so one of the things that we really cover throughout this book is really kind of creating that playbook of your organizational leadership, what you expect your managers, your supervisors to do when it comes to leading, right? Not just the job function things like make sure your team is hitting sales quotas, et cetera, but how are you going to interact with your team? How are you going to lead your team? Are you doing one-on-ones? Are you holding regular meetings, regular huddles, et cetera? So making sure that you have that in place. So when a new leader comes into your organization, they understand how to lead within this organization and live up to this organizational culture. So we really focus on making sure that you have that training in place. Because if you don't, that's how you get accidental managers. That's how people have to kind of go out there and figure it out for themselves and hope they're doing the right thing, as opposed to having some leadership standards in place that anyone who is being onboarded to leader, whether they're coming from outside of the organization or being promoted within the organization, they have those guidelines to follow and understand what it means to lead within that organizational culture.
You know, Dave, to add to that, I believe we are faced with this, definitely me and you as consultants every time we go into a place, right? Because like a new leader, people could think, yeah, I thought we were pretty good at customer service. Why do we need a customer service consultant coming in and telling us, who doesn't know our industry, doesn't know our company, and they're going to tell us? And so, you know, I believe any great leader, especially taking over a new department, team, organization, whatever level they are, should do what we do. You come in and ask questions, and you interview everyone. And, Dave, what is it, about your job that, you like? What is it that prevents you, no fault of you, prevents you from delivering world class? Oh, we're a little short staffed right now. It's busy. Our operating system is out of date. Oh, wow. And you find that, and the other thing that we always have, I was just having this conversation with a client we were onboarding yesterday, and the two biggest things that we always have to find is it's all about legacy, right? And so there's legacy things that are written in stone that you never go against. That's been since the founder, whether the founder's still around, that Walt Disney himself preached. Okay, we as consultants, or we as new leaders, need to know that. So we have the foundational principles that this company was built on. But there's also the opposite legacy. Things that were a flop, things that were left a bad taste in everyone's mouth that you don't want to bring up or so and so it's good to know that. But I really think when anyone finds that the leader is curious, wants your input, endorses your input, says, hey, I had a great conversation with Dave and Lindsay, and they brought up that, this. And so I think that's something we need to, but they also brought up this, and I never want to change that. That's something really good. I think, that discovery should always be the first thing a great leader does.
Perfect. All right. It looks like we have one more from Kristen. She asked, how do you balance being genuine about current circumstances, the bad stuff, with encouragement to overcome? Do you find value in acknowledging the tough stuff?
Yeah, 100%, Kristen. I think you have to be transparent. And that's what I meant. Be in the uncertainty business. People would rather have bad news than not know. That's why in that one study that we talk about in the book, they brought, 50, 100 people in an auditorium, and they were paid, but they didn't know what they were there for. And they said, all right, in the next 45 minutes, half of you are going to get an electric shock. You got two choices. One, roll the dice and see if you're the lucky 50% that doesn't get the electric shock, or you can opt in right now, get the electric shock right now and get it out of the way. And close to 80% of the people took the electric shock because they'd rather have bad than not know when and if it's coming. And so yeah, I believe that we have to be totally transparent. I believe there is, because people will rally around, now we have a common enemy, and we have to, and then, something that I learned back in the pandemic, and I forget who I learned this from, but I copied this with our teams, is everyone was so scared. And the pandemic, the biggest challenge with the pandemic was there was no, just wait 3 months and in fall it'll be over. Oh, we'll be back to normal. We had no idea almost for 18 months of is life ever returning to how we know it, and that caused a lot of anxiety. So I remember hearing someone saying this, and so I did it with you guys, and John Robert Spa and all our companies was saying, listen, let's pick a date at the end of the year. Let's make reservations right now at the best restaurant, because we're going to be celebrating in 6 or 8 months. and showing the finish line and what a victory looks like for us as a company, and that making your team realize that they are in the best place they could be with the right leadership behind them, versus, the unknown. Dave, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'm just looking at Kristen's question. It just makes me think also that you're right on the money, John, with that idea of transparency. And my thought is starting this can be very, very difficult if you're currently in a culture that isn't transparent, right? If your team members aren't hearing the bad stuff or aren't aware and aren't being coached in the moment and necessary, maybe we have some leaders that are afraid of difficult conversations or kind of kick the can down the road, whatever that looks like. So it can be a little difficult to get that going. But once you have that open communication, whether it's happening in huddles with the entire team or happening in one-on-one meetings, once you establish that open communication, then it's much easier from there. But it can be difficult to start. So know that going into it, if you're currently not having those difficult conversations, it could be a pretty difficult jumping off point. But once you get through it, you'll be in great shape.
And, one more thing to Kristen's question, it's really good here, is I have found that, I thought I was being transparent, and I wasn't enough. And then people don't want to get blindsided with bad news. You got to prepare them. But just as important, you got to show them what victory looks like so they have a tangible thing to work towards instead of just the unknown. We have no idea what's going on. So great question, Kristen. Great question from everyone.
Yeah. All right. I think we got through all questions in Q&A and chat. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you back with us in the middle of September. Again, look for an email from me by the end of the day today with copy of the recording and the PDF slide deck and additional resources from the DiJulius group. And Dave, John, anything else before we sign off?
No, thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy your August and get an opportunity for a little R&R before back to school and vacations are over and we're back to the different seasons coming up.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Dave.
guys.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks,
Bye.
Revolutionaries.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.